For your ears only for the week of July 7th, I'm David Alpern.
I'm Eddie Robinson.
يرى أن الجيش المصري العظيم هو ينقل للشعب كله.
History seemed to be repeating itself in Cairo's Tahrir Square and all across Egypt last week as opponents of the government cheered what they hoped would be its imminent demise, and deadly violence also flared. Again, it was the army moving to accelerate the change. The difference was that the leader in question was the nation's first democratically elected president, Mohamed Morsi, supported by the Islamist Muslim Brotherhood and loyalist groups like the National Alliance to Support Legitimacy, whose leader Safat Ghani echoed Morsi's condemnation of military interference as a potentially catastrophic confrontation approached. Opposition to Morsi focused both on his increasingly Islamist priorities and his failure to deal adequately with day-to-day economic and security issues. To take us behind and beyond this dramatic replay of regime change, as tanks began to roll earlier in the week, we were joined by Dr. Tawfiq Hamid, author of Inside Jihad. His website is tawfiqhamid.com. Welcome back to the program.
Pleasure to be with you.
President Morsi insisted he would not resign, as demonstrators in the street demanded. But was that actually what the military proposed? Didn't they really want some sort of power-sharing compromise that would permit them to stay on the sidelines? Or was that just window dressing?
The military, I think, was very clear to implement the will of the people. Morsi must go out and should not share power anymore. After he betrayed the Egyptians and the values of democracy, he used democracy, as many actually warned before in years ago, that the Islamists are very happy to use the ballot until they reach power. And once they are in power, they betray the values of democracy themselves. They cheated on the referendum for the constitution to make it for their benefit. And he actually released the jihadists from prison and terrorists who committed serious terrorist acts. And on the contrary, he allowed the imprisonment or sentences to put in prison the pro-democracy activists who helped him to come to power. So I think the military is very clear, and the Egyptians before the military are very clear that this man can no longer lead their country.
What is the interim plan that the military laid out, and to what degree do they permit some participation of what was, even at its narrowest, an Islamist majority in the election?
They already offered a plan. They will put the head of the Supreme Constitutional Court as the head of the country for a short period until another election is done. And they give the power to create constitutional laws in the hands of the Supreme Constitutional Court now, and they will allow some Islamists to come to power or to be part of the process. Like the Salafi group already talked after the military, and they obviously there is a division between them and the Muslim Brotherhood, which was a great tactic to divide the two groups. Now the Salafists want to be part of the process. They know that the people are turning against the Muslim Brotherhood very strongly. They don't want to be target for the people in the streets. So they prefer to separate from the Muslim Brotherhood and continue the political process. So the Salafi groups, Noor Party, for example, they already spoke and they are likely to be part of the next stage. But it's unlikely that they will be the majority after the experience Egyptians had with an Islamist regime.
If the military's overt control is as temporary as it promises, and eventually there are new elections, what would keep the same Islamist majority from overwhelming a disorganized secular, or at least more moderate opposition?
To answer this question, we need to go to the numbers. The first election between the different people who were presidential candidates, Morsi got only, with all the power of Islamists behind him, got only 25%. The secularists got 65%, okay? It was very clear. When you add Amr Moussa plus Ahmed Shafiq, plus Hamdin Sabahi, the three secularists, they got together 65%. Morsi got only 25%. The rest went to someone called Abu Ftuh. But here is the point here. Morsi managed to reach 51% in the final race because the secularists and liberals didn't like Shafiq because he was from a former regime. So they gave their votes to Morsi based on certain promises which he broke. So when you see the real power of Morsi, it's only the 25%. When you distract from this number or percentage, the negative impact on the economy that they created in the economy, and people are becoming more poor. Electricity shuts every day for hours. It reaches 20 hours in some hot areas in the Cairo and villages, 20 hours loss of electricity on daily basis. So this is within 1 year of his presidency. So the image has declined even more. So when you have 25% his power, in open competition, if you remove the liberals, will no longer, this 65% will never give their votes again to him. So this is on one side. And you have his 25%, even take from them at least half of this has turned against him because the economic crisis they live in now. You can expect that Islamists are unlikely to regain power. Otherwise, we wouldn't have seen 33 million in the streets of Egypt turning against them. And if you follow the social media, also the TV, their image has collapsed completely in the last year, even morally. So I think when you put all the facts together, you can predict that they are unlikely or very unlikely to come to power again.
How much influence does Washington have with the Egyptian military at this point, as opposed to the Morsi regime?
Their main ally there should be, I think, as far as I know, is the military. I don't think that they ever consider the Brotherhood as a real ally, because if you really study the literature of the Brotherhood, you will understand that they have very strong anti-Western agenda, anti-Israeli agenda. The man can give you lip service that he will respect the peace treaty of Israel. But when you see the same man saying to the Egyptian people, nurse your kids' hatred to the Jews, who are the pigs, sons of pigs and monkeys, you can realize what kind of people person you are dealing with. So I think the U.S. it can understand the difference. The relation with the military is, I think, the mainstay in the relation to Egypt.
To what degree are Washington's hands now tied by U.S. law that prevents aid to a country if power is seized in a coup?
I still believe when you put the U.S. interests as a priority in the decision making, I don't think what happened will seriously affect the support to the military, because if they withdraw their support to the military, let us put this case scenario, and the country started to collapse, they will lose the control over Suez Canal, and they will lose also part of the peace treaty with Israel. The military is the guarantor for it. So I don't think that the U.S. will take this risk. Already the oil prices have raised 2% today because the possibility of risk around Suez Canal.
Professor Tawfiq Hamid, author of Inside Jihad. His website, tawfiqhamid.com.
Quote from the news, "The moment for this kind of diplomacy has passed." That was Robert Bletcher, Deputy Director of the Middle East and North Africa Program at the International Crisis Group, on Secretary of State John Kerry's latest attempt to revive Israel-Palestinian peace talks.
Next, Republicans at a crossroad on immigration, same-sex marriage, abortion, and more. For your ears only.